Everybody, we are officially going to start the training part of our call. My name is Joe Johnson. I've got my co-host Jimmy Hernandez on, and we're going to be bringing you guys some great value today. And what the reason why we wanted to talk about the activity tracker is I've been, as you guys know, we've been, recruiting pretty aggressively and onboarding a lot of new agents, and I've really been trying to make a very good effort is to reach out to as many agents as I can to help them with their business. And also what I've been doing is I've been going back and working with a lot of veteran agents as well, people that have been here, 3, 4, 5 years, and really just kind of dive in and kind of analyze their business and see where maybe we can tweak a few things. The one thing that really occurred to me, I guess, is that I guess I didn't realize how many agents are not using the daily activity tracker. And it really kind of blew my mind because to me, it just seems like, I don't know. I mean, I've been using an activity tracker for, since 2009, since I, got into the business because, the person that brought me in, my initial, mentor, and this is where I didn't invent the daily activity tracker. I just customized it to pertain more towards what we do. But when I first got into the business in 2009, I mean, this was mandatory. I had to do an activity tracker and send my numbers in on a weekly basis. And my mentor wouldn't even work with me unless I had an activity tracker. So for me, it just seemed like, why wouldn't you do it? It's like common sense. And obviously here, everyone's you're an independent contractor, you're self-employed. We're not requiring you to do an activity tracker. But I'm going to give you some great reasons on why you should do it. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a story of an agent that's been here for about, I think he initially came on in April. It was April of 2015. So it's already been, it's already been, it's going on 6 years that he's been with the company. His name is Steven. He's out of Ohio. If you ever get on any of the national calls, you see his name a lot on the national leaderboard. Really good guy, really great agent, but really one of those, I would consider him to be like a lone wolf agent, meaning is that, hey, he just does his own thing. Doesn't really need a lot of coaching or mentoring. He's a great agent, writes a lot of business, kind of does his own thing, just calls me typically whenever there's a problem. Like if I need to fix something or push something through underwriting or, maybe have a question about leads or whatever. I really haven't done a lot of like one-on-one mentoring with him because when he came to us, he was already a seasoned agent. But through my talks with him, recently over the last few months is what I found out is that he doesn't track his numbers at all. Because when we started going over a few things as far as, hey, how many leads are you getting? What's your door knock? I mean, he didn't know any of his numbers. I'm like, dude, how many dials are you making? Oh, I don't know. How many door knocks are you doing in a week? I don't know. His answer was, I just do however many I need to do. I said, dude, you got to track your numbers, and for me anyway, when I first got into this business, I would take this activity, like the sheet that you see, and I should have put up an image of it. But I would take this to like Kinko's, Staples, Office Max, wherever, and get this put into a spiral notebook. I would take this copy, print it double-sided, and then get like, how many would I get? 20, 52, 26, at least 26. Get 26 of pages in, like, I'd take it with me everywhere. If I'm driving in the car, I take it with me. That way, if I'm making dials, I can track my dial numbers. When I do a door knock, I have my book open. Sometimes for a daily, I may scratch on a piece of paper and then later that day transfer my numbers. But a lot of times, man, I would just carry that little booklet with me everywhere, and it'd have coffee stains on it and all different, stuff. But I'd have a snapshot of everything that I did for a year. And back when I used to recruit a lot more people face to face, that was like my recruiting tool. Like I would take my activity booklet with me and say, hey, let me show you what it takes to be successful in this business. And I'd pull out this book of a year's worth of production and activity and show the new recruit month by or week by week everything that I did. Say, this is what I did to write $250,000 worth of business. You can write more. All you got to do is do more activity, but this is what's required. And for me, it was a great recruiting tool because it put everything into perspective, and it showed how many leads I was receiving. Every little bit of detail of what I was doing. So getting back to the story with Stephen, is that Stephen wasn't tracking his numbers, and he couldn't really tell me, other than how many, basically maybe kind of like how many leads he was doing, and obviously he knew, how much production he was doing. So I just kind of went through, my story with him and told him the importance of tracking his numbers, because at the end of the day, man, this is your accountability to yourself. This is accountability to your business. And I don't know if this is your first time ever owning a business or ever being a manager or managing a business, but Jimmy, I know, me and you, this is not our first sales, game. We've been in sales for the most of our lives. Every other organization I've ever been in, man, we would track our numbers. When I was a green pea in the car business, selling cars on the floor, my managers, I'd never forget this. My manager's name was Gus. Okay. And we would have these weekly meetings, and Gus was like he was like a spreadsheet junkie, man, like a freak. And we would have these meetings, and he'd have these spreadsheets. He'd be like, hey, Joe Johnson, this is, and they, in the car business, they call them ups. That's how many people, you had, and how they would track the numbers, guys, is that every time a client came onto the lot, a prospect, when you, as you were talking to them, you'd have to go up to the sales desk and request an up card. And it was basically like a questionnaire, where you asked the client questions and different things like that. So they knew exactly how many up cards you got for the week. So, you got 30 up cards for the week. You did this many presentations, and this is your closing percentage. This was your gross profit. I mean, everything was broken down. So I guess, for me anyway, when I first was introduced to the insurance daily activity tracker, over 11 years ago, it just kind of made sense to me, because I was already used to tracking. I knew the importance of tracking numbers. And most of I spent a lot of years in the car business, and we tracked everything. I mean, to, how much money we spend on advertising. Just like as insurance agents, we track how many, what we're investing in our business, as far as how many leads we're taking, what type of leads. I mean, we tracked every single aspect of the business. As a business owner, as a agency owner, business owner, it's so important for us to track our numbers. I don't know if it's even possible to quantify it unless you're not tracking your numbers, and then you start tracking your numbers and you can see the difference. In one of my favorite books, and I don't mean to go down a bunch of rabbit holes, but one of my, again, I'll go back when I first got in the insurance business, the person I was working with, it was, I say mandatory, it was highly recommended that I read this book by Frank Betcher called How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success. This is a baseball player who got injured and got into insurance sales and was just like phenomenal. But in the book, it actually has like photocopies of how he tracked his numbers. So even way back, and I think this was in the 40s, I want to say. I think it was like pre-World War II, maybe in between World War I, World War II, when Frank was selling insurance. I may have the dates wrong, but I think I'm accurate. Um, Even back then, agents were tracking their numbers, and what he talked about in that book is about how tracking his numbers revolutionized his business and really opened up his eyes. So what I want to talk about is how Steven's business has really transformed from not tracking his numbers to tracking his numbers. And with his permission, I'm going to bring up now this is what a blank activity tracker looks like. I'm going to show you how to fill it out, and I'm going to show you what his numbers were for, I think he sent, it was either last week or the week before. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to get up I'm going to get a highlighter here. Okay, here we go. So here are the numbers, and this is going back, it looks like it's, okay, so it's end of November, first week of December. So this is how you fill out an activity tracker, and this is with my help. This is filled out exactly the way I told him how to fill out. I gave him some examples, did some coaching with him as far as exactly how to do it.
Man, he did 90 door knocks. That's amazing.
Yeah, and 109 dials too. All right, so check this out, guys. And Stephen regularly is getting anywhere from 20 to 30 leads a week. Not as consistent as it should be, but he's doing much better. So if you go back to the date, and the thing about this activity tracker is that you fill in the day and the date, the year, so it can be used. It's like a universal calendar. You can use it. It doesn't matter when you start. But with our organization, we always recommend that you start the start of your week is a Saturday, regardless if you have any activity or not. That's the start of your week. So here you can see November the 28th, and I'll highlight that. That's when his week started. That was a Saturday. And what I recommended to him is that's going to be one of your dial days. So get on the phones at 8 o'clock in the morning, start pounding the phones. And what you're looking to do is you're looking to book as many appointments for Monday as possible to try to fill up Monday. And if you have to, book them to Tuesday, but try to get as much activity as you can in Monday. Okay. So, oh, and by the way, Jimmy, this is a guy who really was not big on the phone. Like, he's strictly a door knocker guy. Like, that's his thing. And I just told him, I said, dude, I'm a huge component of door knocking. If I only had one way to prospect, I'm going to door knock. And I just, basically just told him, I said, the beauty of working the phones, it doesn't matter what happens on the phone. You're not going to screw the lead up. You can still go door knock them even after you call them. They're not going to put two and two together, because if you call them and the call doesn't go well, chances are they probably just thought you were a telemarketer anyway, and telemarketers don't show up at your house. So what he was able to do on Saturday is make 63 dials, and this is using the multi-dial technique. So he's calling every lead, 3 or 4 times. Let it ring, hang up, call back, push redial. Do that at least 3 to 4 times on every single lead to talk to as many people as you can. And as you can see, as you're making your dials, what you do is you're just making those haystacks. So we circled it here, got 63 dials in on Saturday. Scripts were able to talk to 9 people out of those 63 dials and book 5 appointments. Those 5 appointments are going into, it doesn't specify here, but it's either Monday or Tuesday, one of those 2 days. Again, Sunday afternoon typically is the best time to call. Did 46 dials, which honestly, probably maybe an hour and a half to do, somewhere between an hour, no more than 2 hours to do 46 dials. The 63 dials, I think he said it took him about 3 hours to do that. Obviously he had a lot of connections, And the more connections you have, and if you're booking appointments, it takes a little bit longer to do the dials. But Sunday, got back on the phone again, trying to book as many appointments as you can for Monday and Tuesday. 46 dials, read 5 scripts. And a script is when you can have a conversation for somebody. If I call a lead and I do my intro line and they just hang up on me, I don't count that as a script. Okay, I have to have at least go through, get them to recognize who I am, and have somewhat of a conversation. Either maybe they say, I'm not interested, call me back later, or whatever. Even if they blow me off, it's a script. But if they simply just hang up on you in the beginning, don't even count that as a script. So 5 scripts. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interject here, but I want y'all to notice that he did these calls 2 days after Thanksgiving. And I don't know how many agents use the excuse, well, it's the holidays, and put it off. But anyway, back to you, Joe.
I didn't even think about that. Good. Yeah, very, very good point. This is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And as you can see, roughly, he's getting a little bit, I guess that would be about 60%. He's roughly booking about, we'll say 50 to 60% of the people that he talks to into an appointment. Now, that doesn't mean that the people that he's not booking aren't gonna book later, but maybe they said call back or whatever. But anyway, roughly, a 60% book ratio. 5 scripts, 3 appointments. No production activity Saturday and Sunday. Left that for Monday and Tuesday. So you can see Monday, absolutely no phone calls. Because like I said, this guy's a door knocker. He's a machine when it comes to door knocking. Uses the Road Warrior app. He does a lot of things good with his business. I know he's a hard worker. He just wasn't tracking his numbers. And this really enlightened him and opened up his eyes. He's been tracking his numbers for a while now, and finally really getting it down. So even though he had preset appointments for Monday, was still able to squeeze in between appointments and no-shows to do 11 door knocks. Those 11 door knocks, he talked to 2 people, and he actually booked 2 appointments, and then he had 5 sits. So remember, how he got 5 sits is that the sits were from the activity they did on Saturday and Sunday carried over into the sits on Monday. Just in case you were wondering, how do you go from 2 door knocks, 2 appointments to 5 sits? Now, the thing that this doesn't show is that maybe these appointments he booked for later in the week. Could have been maybe he booked them for Tuesday or Wednesday. That information doesn't show up in the activity tracker, so I don't know. But what I do know is that he was, from the activity, he was able to do 5 sits, which is basically a presentation. A sit means that you actually got in front of the client and you were able to do some type of presentation, whether it's on their porch, on the hood of their car, over the, on a trash can lid, or you're sitting at the kitchen table. Presentation is a presentation. So we got 5 of those in. Of those, he wrote 3 applications. Okay, now what I like to do, if there's room, now sometimes you can't do it because you write so many applications, but with my instruction is what I told him. I said, if you can squeeze it in, just write down the AP of each application. So you can see he wrote 3 apps, one for 805, one for 471, and we're rounding them to the nearest dollar. We're not including the cents, and $693. So Monday wrote $1,968 worth of business. Referrals, this guy never got referrals. Now he's getting referrals. Was able to pick up 7 referrals. And guys, the safe money, that means, did you uncover a potential annuity? Could be money sitting in a CD, could be money sitting in the bank, doing nothing, earning no interest. could be an old 401k, any type of asset that your client has that they're looking to improve their situation on is considered safe money, okay? Going into Tuesday, now it's December the 1st. Again, no dials. You can see the door knock activity is picking up because he's probably already gone through a lot of the appointments. Now, the one thing that doesn't show until you do the math on the end doesn't show how many no-shows there are. So as an example, I'm just looking at this and I'm reading into it, is that I'm thinking that probably there are quite a few no-shows Monday. That's how he was able to get the 11 door knocks in and you know, able to book those into appointments. Going into Tuesday.
I did the numbers. He booked 22 appointments and he had 17 sits. So that comes out to a 77% sit ratio based off his booked appointments, which I'm just going to make it simple. 1 out of 4, you know, flaked on him.
1 out of 4 flaked on him, exactly.
So think about this. If you're out in the field and you're not tracking your activity and you're doing a little bit door knocking, then maybe you're going and running some errands, you know, maybe you're doing a little bit of Christmas shopping, trying to get some things done, and you're not really keeping tabs on how many people you're actually prospecting. And then you get excited because the little bit of prospecting you did, you were able to book appointments, right? But then they flake on you. And instead of you being emotionally attached to those that flaked on you, what you should be doing is doing more prospecting so that that doesn't matter at the end of the week. If you have 17 sits and 9 applications, you're not so much concerned about the 6 people that flaked on you. Does that make sense, Joe?
It makes total sense. And the funny thing is, Jimmy, through my coaching, when I coach a lot of agents, is that they only want to talk about the people who flaked on them. You know, and the biggest advice is that I can give you, if you're listening to this call right now, and all you're doing is reflecting on the people who flaked on you, the deals you didn't write, two things wrong with your business. You don't have enough people to talk to, i.e., you don't have enough leads, and you're not making enough presentations. Those are the 2 things that will cure your problems. I promise you. Presentations will fix any problems you're having with your business. So we don't drag this out too long. I'm just going to run through the numbers. You guys can analyze this yourself and you can compare this to what you're doing. Start tracking your numbers. Tuesday, 17 door knocks, 3 scripts at the door, only talked to 3 people, but was able to book that into an appointment, did 2 sits, wrote 1 application for $712, 3 referrals, no safe money. Wednesday, there we go. Here's some good activity. 26 door knocks, 7 scripts at the door, 4 appointments, 3 sits, only 1 app. What that doesn't show is, guys, is that maybe those 4 appointments, some of those were booked for you know, later days. You know, the activity tracker is great. It doesn't show the full story, but it shows most of it. What really shows the numbers is that when you get down to the bottom and you look at the totals, and everything will work itself. Sometimes you have carryovers into the next week. So when you look at your activity trackers on a consistent basis, week after week, everything kind of evens out because you are going to have carryover from one week to the next. But we only got the 1 application for $387, kind of a small one. Again, this time, no referrals, no safe money. Thursday, 20 door knocks, 5 scripts at the door, 4 appointments, 4 sits. This is a good day. Wrote 2 applications. 1 for $598, 1 for $705. Total premium of $1,303. Look at this, 12 referrals. This is from a guy who never got a referral in his life. Now he's tracking the numbers. And he even told me, he goes, man, he goes, I never realized how tracking your numbers will make. He goes, now I'm being like competitive with myself. It's just like how many, the goal is to try to get 50 referrals in a week, which, shouldn't be that hard. Found a client that had $25,000 in an account. I'm not sure if we can do anything with it, but at least we know it's there. We're actually tracking the numbers now. Friday, shorter day, because, the morning is the training call, but 16 door knocks in the afternoon, 6 scripts, 3 appointments, 3 sits, 2 applications, one nice one for $1,380, medium size for $564, and a total of $1,944. Okay, 5 referrals, no safe money. Now let's analyze the total at the bottom. For that week, he did 109 dials, and this is from a guy who really never made a phone call in his life. I mean, he's strictly a door knocker. Okay, now keep in mind, this is something that sometimes newer agents, they look at these and they don't understand. 109 dials doesn't mean you called 109 leads. Okay, that's 109 dials on whatever batch of leads that he had. So if you're calling, let's say on average, you're calling, let's say take 109, let's just say divide it by 3. If you called every lead 3 times, and I know some of them are going to pick up on the first ring, but let's just give us an idea. That means roughly he was working somewhere around 30 leads for the week, 30 to 40 leads, assuming some of them, he dialed 3 or 4 times. Some may be picked up on the first ring, some may be picked up on the 4th ring. We don't know. The point I just want to make is that 109 dials doesn't mean that you're calling 109 leads. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the translation when we go over these numbers. Of the 109 dials, he was able to book 14, not book, but have 14 scripts. In other words, have 14 conversations, which is, I don't know what that is percentage wise. It's probably somewhere around 12%, I'm guessing. And then 8 appointments off of 109 dials, which is somewhere around 7%. Let's just say let's just kind of do the math in our heads there. Somewhere around 7%. So, and those numbers are pretty consistent, because when I was a full-time producer and I made a lot of dials, I always came up with a number of about 6, that I knew that, if I made 100 dials for the week, now dials, not calling leads, but 100 dials, that would result in somewhere around, 6 appointments. My number was always roughly around 6%. Door knocks, 90 door knocks, guys. That's some pretty good activity. 23 scripts at the door, and these are the numbers I'm reading now. So we got 90 door knocks, 23 scripts, 14 appointments off of just door knocks. We're able to do 17 presentations total, wrote 9 applications for $6,315. Obviously, this is strictly final expense. There's no IULs or any big cases in here. Number I really am impressed with, 26 referrals from a guy who never got a referral in his life unless it was handed to him. And then $25,000 worth of potential annuity number. Now, look at the bottom, application to sit ratio. What are we doing there? Basically, what we're doing is we're taking how many sits, we're taking the 9 applications, dividing into the 17 sits in 53%. Not setting any records on fire. I mean, this is not like earth-shattering numbers like, oh my God, the guy's like the best closer in the world. Pretty average. I mean, what we recommend, what we typically say is that you should be somewhere around 60%. So his application to sit ratio was a little bit lower than what we say the average is, but yet he wrote over $6,000 an application just on pure activity, with 22 appointments. And then we wrote in here 17 presentations. And then Jimmy, what did you say that, I think you worked out the percentage, right?
Yeah, he closed 77% of his sits. Oh, no. I'm sorry. He had
No, some other
77%
number
of his
you were.
booked appointments he sat with.
Got it. Okay, yeah, we did that. Okay, leads received, 25 A leads. Guys, these were direct mail leads. These weren't Facebook leads. These weren't like recycled leads. Like these are, 25 here, 25 times 30, $750 worth of leads right there. Okay, let's do the math on it. Age leads, I convinced them to go ahead and purchase some age leads and mix those into your blend. So for the first time too, he's also working some kind of dollar cost averaging, because you never know what you're going to pick up on some of these aged leads. So guys, at the end of the day, this is why it's so important to track your numbers. So on a weekly basis, man, you got a snapshot of everything that you're doing, because when you're out there and you're just running, it's easy for anybody just to get lost in the minutia and not really have a clear snapshot, because there's so many positive takeaways from this. Because when we're not tracking our numbers, we have a tendency to always focus on the negative, like, oh, how many people no showed you or torched you, or it's easy to focus on the negative. But when you're tracking your numbers, man, it's really, to me, it's encouraging. It's encouraging to know this, is that every time you make a dial, every time you make a door knock, is that it's going to translate into so much income. But unless you're tracking your numbers, you will never know that information. Like I always had it down to a science that I knew exactly how much every door knock was worth to me. And it was roughly a little bit over $50. So I knew, regardless of whether a client answered the door or not, every time I knocked a door, it was worth $50. How do I know that? Because I track my numbers for years and years and years and years and years. And that, to me, is like motivation to get your butt out of the house and go door knock, to know. And same way with making dials, to know, hey man, every time I make a dial, it's worth this much money, because I know I'm going to book this many appointments. Obviously it's going to be a lot less. Maybe it's $10. Every dial you make is worth $10, because if you make X amount of dials, it's going to result into this many appointments. This many appointments is going to result in presentations, which is going to result into applications, which is going to result into issue pay business and money into your bank account. So Jimmy, let's see here. Before I turn the call over to you, we've got about 10 minutes left. Anything that, and I know you're a huge component of the activity tracker, but is there anything that you'd like to comment on or add to what we've been talking about so far?
What I love about the activity tracker for myself is that it holds me accountable to myself.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, here's the thing, when you're running your own business and you're the CEO of your own corporation, if you will, you don't have anybody to hold yourself accountable. You're the boss, right? But when you track your numbers, you hold yourself accountable. And when you slack off, you look at your numbers. The other thing I like is that, like, if you start using the activity tracker, you, like Joe said earlier, you get motivated. You want to see more ticks on there. You want to see, the activity, and when you slack off and you don't have any activity, then it's you to blame, right? And so this especially helps with what I call the honeydews, right? Like usually my wife, I'll just use my personal example. My wife loves to give me honeydews because she doesn't see that I have a business. She sees that, you know, I can work whatever hours I want. So she's, well, go pick this up, go do this. Can you go do this? So if you get caught up in honeydews, that takes away from your business activity. And so you just have to get back on track. And you know, in my case, I tell my wife, you know, I have a business to run. You're gonna have to do that yourself, or I'll get to that after I'm done with my business. And sometimes I have to remind her that this is a business, and if I'm out running around doing errands, I'm taking away from our income. So I mean, but you have to remind yourself, and looking at the activity tracker, that holds you accountable. So anyway, that's it,
Yeah.
Joe, for me on that.
One quick tip, guys. If you're having the same problem Jimmy and I do with the wife with the honeydew, I got an easy solution for you. Get a Google Calendar and fill it up and share it with your spouse, and and fill it up with blocks of prospecting and your work, and then you know she can add to the calendar or around that. But that always helped me is sharing my calendar. Wait a minute, what's this slide? Jimmy Hernandez,
What?
top producer, 2 apps for $15,785. What?
What's
Jimmy,
that
what's that about?
about?
Did you go write some business?
Hey, those were both referrals, Joe.
Well, nice job, dude. I couldn't resist. I got your numbers for last week, and uh, 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 you were definitely the top producer in the country last week with $15,785 in annualized premium. So nice job, my brother, for having an outstanding week last week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we don't have too much time left, so if you want, we can move through this quickly, or we can
Yeah.
talk about it next week. What do you want to
Now
do?
let's get into it. Maybe we can have a little bit of a carryover. But go ahead, man. I got your slides going, brother.
Well, Joe, Confucius say, dig your well before you're thirsty. And that's what really we're talking about here. You know, I take that two ways. One, you can't wait till you run out of leads before you order new leads, right? And the other thing is, how about the book of business that you have already established? You know, even if you're a brand new agent, maybe you have a handful of clients. Well, that's your book of business. And out of that book, you can generate referrals. And that's really what I want to talk about, is not running out of leads. You want to build your referral leads with all your existing clients. And so here's the thing. If you're starting from scratch, and take a look at, you know, that activity tracker we just talked about, right? All of that work off those leads, it's hard work, and it's the hardest to generate that first initial sell in the household. But once you've established that first sell, after that, additional business comes easy in that house. And that's what I really kind of want to talk to you about, is how to build your referral business so your well doesn't run dry, right? Let me see. Let me look at my notes. So my notes are, how do you build the relationship? And so Joe, let's see here. What is the next slide, Joe?
The checklist.
Checklist. Perfect. Okay, so every time I submit business, this is like my little check off. So like, you know, you have your cover sheet and you have your app. This goes on top of all of that, right? And it's my checklist. Did I scrub it, fax it to the carrier? Did I send them a thank you card? I always send people thank you cards the day I write the business. I've gotten to this habit for years now. So as soon as I come home, before I lay my head down, I will write a thank you card to everybody I took an application on, and I get it in the mailbox that day. And that way it's sitting there tomorrow morning when the mailman comes, they're getting the thank you card, right? And by the way, I ordered my thank you cards through Joe with the Senior Solution logo and my name and phone number already on there. All I got to do is write a quick note personalize it to them, sign it, stick it in, and mail it off, right? So many salespeople in just about every industry that there's a salesman out there, right? They're really big on, making the sale and then forgetting about that customer. They never call them again. They don't follow up with them. They're moving on to the next one. And that's a big mistake. You want to build that relationship. And what a great start is for them to get that thank you card within a day or two after you've already taken the application. It means a lot to them. It also will, I guess you can say, validate your credibility, right? So maybe they start thinking about canceling, or maybe wondering if you were legitimate, or they tell their kids, maybe you're working with a senior that's in their 60s and their kids are in their 40s, and that 40-year-old comes and visit mom and dad and they say, what is this? What did you get this? But then they get that thank you card, right? And it makes them feel good about it. So, because one thing I've learned about sales, it's all about the relationship, right? So send that thank you card out. I save all of my, I store all of my data on Google Cloud. So I upload it. These are just little things that I do. Update opt. If you don't know what opt is, that tells me you're not buying any leads. But and then I take them off of my Road Warrior so that I'm not going out there knocking them again. And you might say, well, how would you forget that? Well, when you write a lot of business, right? You can't remember every single name. They all kind of like blend in together, right? So you got to take it off your Road Warrior. But follow up after approval, right? So I call them when their decision. I let them know, hey, congratulations, you got approved, and I get them all excited. I remind them at that time that when their initial draft is going to be, and I confirm the amount. I ask them to give me a call when they receive their policy. Now, before I leave their home, I tell them that I'm going to call them when they get approved, and I tell them that when they get their policy to call me so that I can go back out and review it with them to make sure everything's correct. So I'm already telling them that when I'm in the house. Now I'm calling them back like I said I would, and then I'm asking them and reminding them again. The other thing that I do at this time is I put it on my calendar 2 weeks out to follow up. So if I don't hear from them in 2 weeks, I call them to ask if they got their policy, right? Then I schedule the policy review, right? So I'm going to go back out to their house. I also create a beneficiary certificate. I'm going to deliver those certificates. When I'm in the home, that's when I ask for referrals. Now, here's the one thing I can tell you is that most of the time I don't even have to ask. Like, they just come out. By the way, my son, my daughter, my brother, my sister, my cousin, my neighbor, my coworker, they just also needs insurance, right? And here's their number. Give them a call, right? Uh, if their children don't live with them, if they say, you know what, my son, he really needs insurance. He's got a family, and he's got 2 kids, and he's working this job, and they don't offer life insurance, and I really want him to get it. I want you to call him. I tell them, let's call him right now. You tell him. And so when mom calls son and says, I want you to talk to Jimmy Hernandez and I want you to meet with him, guess what he does? Does what she says, right? Because that's mama telling him. So you got to kind of like, I guess you can say, put yourself in that situation. If they don't automatically give me the referrals, so I ask them, is there anybody in your home that would need a quote? Who else in your house needs life insurance? If they don't have anybody in their house, do you have any coworkers, or do you have any friends, or somebody at church? Anybody that also is looking for life insurance? And then I try to get the referral. I'm going to just give you a real quick tip on referrals. A lot of times people will say, I'll give them your business card and I'll have them call you. They never call. You have to get their number, right? So always get their number, okay? And then I enter their information on the client database that I'm going to show you next. I also call their beneficiaries, right? So like this works really well if they don't live in the house, right? If it's their husband, well, you don't necessarily need to create a beneficiary certificate if it's the wife's husband or vice versa because they live together, right? But if their children live elsewhere, I give them a call. I tell them that they're the beneficiary on their parents' policy, that I'm going to be reviewing that policy with their mom on this date, and I have a beneficiary certificate to deliver to you, and I would like you to be there while we review the policy. This works. They show up. They're very appreciative, right? I booked that appointment. They're there. I give them their certificate. I explain everything to them. I go through the memorial guide at that time. And then I usually, if they don't already ask for a quote, I ask them, how are they situated? You know, do they have any plans to take care of their final expenses, right? And that's how you build your book of business or get referrals from your book of business. So, Joe, let's go on to the next one, which is the client data sheet.
Hey, Jimmy, do you think we could pick up next week though?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's we've been going for an hour, and then what I'd like to do, let's get together. A lot of people are probably scratching their head saying, "What is a beneficiary certificate?" So maybe next week, what we could do is we could pick up and we could summarize this really quick, like recap it, but let's go over exactly. Let's do a call on how to like the beneficiary certificate, and then I could email or text everybody the PDF document, how to put it together.
The template, sure. And then like just if you're still on the call and you're listening next week, so we're going to talk about, building your client relationship. And I'm going to go into depth a little bit more and talk about how to build that rapport, build your relationship. And then finally, I'm also going to talk about how to retain your business. So, we're going to keep that chargeback monster off of your back. So tune in next week if you want to learn about, how to build your relationship with your clients and how to retain your existing, policies and, conserve your policy, for your commissions. You're not getting charged back. So anyway, that sounds great, Joe. I'll give you the call back.
All right, awesome, brother. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Jimmy, thanks for just some outstanding information, quality stuff, and then we will pick up next week. God bless everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye, Jimmy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.